Okay, council, I'm going to call the regular council meeting of Warwick Township Council, January 9th, 2023 to order. I remind everybody of disclosure of pecuniary interest or conflict of interest rules and regulations. If you have one, please state it at the appropriate time. I also want to welcome everybody here to the Warwick Township YouTube link. I'd also like to make reference of the acknowledgement of the ancestral lands. We acknowledge that the land on which we are gathered here today, Township of Warwick, is located on the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe peoples. We'll go to number 5 on the agenda. That's minutes of the previous council meeting, that being the minutes of December 5th, 2022. How does council wish to deal with those minutes? Looks like maybe it's also including the minutes of December 5th, Amanda?
Yes.
Okay, how does council wish to deal with those minutes?
I'll move.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Kallenberg, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, council, let's, I guess there was no business arising from those previous meetings. And number 7 is scheduled meetings and events. There's a long list of them there. Does anybody have any questions on those scheduled meetings and events? That being 7A. Seeing none, we'll go to 7B, and that's other meetings and events. So that's including the Roma Conference and the Good Roads Conference. Any questions on that, council? Seeing none, we will go to number 8, councilors' commitments and items. So maybe what I'll do is I'll start with you, Joe. Did you have any commitment dates you wanted to share with council today?
I have none.
Very good. Deputy Mayor Kallenberg?
None at this time.
Councillor Westgate?
I have March 17th, July the 1st, or to April 1st and July 17th to the 23rd.
Very good. Amanda, I'm just going to clarify. I know Mr. Morris, Councillor Morris was trying to tune in today. Has he managed to do that? Before I leave this, I want to obviously ask him if he is able to tune in today. Okay. I'm going to see Councillor Morris. Do you hear us? Okay, what I'm going to do, Councillor Morris is trying to join us. He's away on vacation. So if he does manage to link in, we can always go back and ask him these questions. Council, I'm going to go to 8B, councilor items. I'm going to start with Councillor Westgate.
I have nothing today to report or ask.
Councillor Manning.
Yeah, I have nothing either.
Deputy Mayor Kallenberg.
Just an email regarding the burden issue at the hall, but I think that's been resolved now, so.
Very good. And I do see Councillor Morris. I don't know if he can hear us. Wayne, can you hear us? Did you have
Yes, I
anything
can hear
for
you.
councilor items today?
No,
Wayne?
I do not. Thank you.
We're just going to get the volume adjusted a little bit here, maybe, Wayne. We're not quite hearing you.
No, I
I'm
have
going to
no,
ask again, Wayne. Did you have anything for today? No?
no, I do not.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, I'm just going to note that we do have some meetings coming up in January. The one thing that's very important to this council and has been for quite some time is trying to get natural gas to Warwick Village and other areas of Warwick Township that does not have it. We are trying to put that meeting together coming up here in January. Had some good discussions with Enbridge. And we are waiting for the provincial government to put their funding model out there so we can apply. And there is a motion later on in this agenda today that makes sure that the province knows that we're interested in doing that. So we'll do that officially later on and we'll go from there. We've also got a meeting to do with some drainage issues that are very important to us around CN Rail. Also at that same, in January at that same Roma conference. And we look forward to trying to make CN pay their fair share when it comes to drains. I'm going to go to staff items number 9. And I'm going to ask Amanda. Amanda's going to give us a verbal update on Canada Post. This is something that we've been all dealing with here on these post box numbers on mailers and people having mail returned over the holidays and before that even. And we're trying to resolve this situation. Amanda, please.
Thank you, Mayor Case. So further to Mayor Case's introduction, I did want to advise that on the agenda, we have both the initial letter that the previous term of council sent to Canada Post on September 26th, as well as their response correspondence dated December 1st. This is the first time the December 1st correspondence has been shared with council. So just want to highlight that. As you know, and as the community knows, we have had some continued concerns with the post system in Watford over the last couple of years, and primarily based on the PO box delivery method required by Canada Post. Firstly, I want to let council know that we have met with Canada Post regarding these concerns, and we are trying to work with them to resolve them. To that end, they have provided this letter back, and also we will be working to schedule a meeting with Canada Post at the Roma conference. So coming up this January to discuss the concerns in our community and a potential solution forward to address them. In the meantime, we'll continue on our end on our staff end to collect any complaints from members of council or members of the public to ensure that Canada Post and our contact at Canada Post specifically is made aware. So I would ask any members of council, if you're contacted with any complaints, feel free to forward them to me. And I continue to compile almost weekly packages to send to Canada Post directly, and we'll continue to do so. And further to that, any members of the public viewing, as you do receive returned mail or have any concerns, feel free to contact me directly at the office, and I'd be happy to assist as best as I can. Of course, the municipality's hope is that in working with Canada Post, hopefully soon, we can arrive at a long-term solution to this issue.
All right, thank you, Amanda, for that. B, verbal update from Trevor Jarrett, Treasurer, Deputy CEO, on the need for a generator for the Watford Fire Station. Trevor, if you'd be so kind.
Thank you. Late last week, the generator at the Watford Fire Station has continued to fail. It's to the point whereby parts are almost.
Excuse me. Could I have a cerveza, please?
All right, Trevor, if you'd be so kind. Wayne's microphone just left him. Wayne is on vacation.
For it though.
And he is good enough that he's quite a distance away and he still is here today taking part in the meeting. So Trevor, if you'd be so kind.
Okay, the backup generator at the fire station has failed. They've tried to repair it and they cannot get the parts for it. So this is scheduled for replacement in the capital schedule in 2025. Our quote from GenCare is $11,235 plus HST, or if we want to add an extra 5 years to take it to a 10-year warranty period, it's $12,860. My recommendation in talking to the chief is, as it's an emergent issue, particularly in winter, we can get one ordered almost immediately and have it installed within a couple of weeks. And we will move the drying rack that's in the budget for this year to a future year and take whatever funding shortfall that is currently there from the operating reserve that exists for the Watford Fire Station. Before we go forward, I just want to have council's blessing so we can get this done immediately.
Thank you, Trevor. Council, any questions about the generator at this time? If not, what's council's wish when it comes to replacing this sooner or later? Councilor Westgate.
Make a motion, we go ahead with Trevor's recommendation.
Do we have a seconder to that?
I'll second
I'll
that.
second it, Todd.
Thank you. Thank you, Wayne. Any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Okay, we're a little ahead of the game here, I believe, when it comes to delegation and timed events. So what we're going to do is we're going to go to number 11, council. We're going to go right into accounts. So we have the GL report. Did anybody have any questions on the GL report at this time? Yes, Councillor Westgate.
Are there many more expenses to come. Looks like now we're below budget on expenses, but there's more to come.
There's more to come. We will keep the payables open probably till the end of the month and then do accruals from there in order to capture everything. We also have some entries to make for year end that are going to transfer funds into reserves accordingly. We will probably finish below budget on our expenditures and above budget on our revenues, but just slightly.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions on the jail report? Okay, what about the accounts payable, council? Anybody have any questions on the accounts payable? This has been added for a reference for council. Anybody have any questions on the accounts payable? Councilor Westgate.
I've no questions, but I'm just glad to see this back on. It lets the new people on council especially know where money is being spent day to day.
Yes, no, I agree. I agree, Counselor. So being there's no questions on either of the two, Chair report of the accounts payable, I'd look for a motion to approve the two together, if I could, please.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Counselor Manning, thank you. Seconder,
I'll second it.
Deputy Mayor Kellenberg, all in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That takes us to 12 items not requiring a motion. This is all part of this consent agenda, which is still new to this council and a very much so. Did anybody have anything on the items not requiring a motion? There are, looks like it goes A to G. Does anybody have any questions or anything they want to pull out of that particular piece of the agenda? I'm not seeing anybody looking to do so. Okay, so then we'll go right on to reports and items requiring a motion. And the first one's action correspondence. And how does council wish to deal with the action correspondence?
I'll move.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Kellenberg. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Manning? John, which item are you moving?
How much?
I'll move the road race sponsorship letter
Okay,
for the amount asked.
okay, so the road race sponsorship. Quite often what we do when there's requests like that on the funding, we refer them to budget. In the budget process, we're back at it January 25th. But I have no problem with the motion that John's made. Is there a seconder to the funding for the road race? Councillor Westgate?
Which one did you want? I'm sorry, John, I didn't hear that. There's a gold or platinum or silver. Goes from 150 to 1,000.
I guess the question I have is what have we done in the past? And I know we've donated on a yearly basis.
They're already approved on our donation list for $1,000.
I wondered that.
Man, maybe you can help me out. I can't seem to get mine opened up here. Can we go through this list on the action side, please? If you'd assist me with it on the action correspondence. So maybe we can go through them. I mean, again, there's some funding requests there. So if I'll ask you to do that if you don't, if you'd be so kind.
Absolutely. I'm happy to do that. Thanks, Mayor Case. That first motion moved by Councillor Kellenberg was a motion to continue. Well, do we need to continue the provision of $1,000 donation to the annual Watford Road Race as per our existing approval in our donation policy? So it is a bit of a procedural motion, but we would need a seconder to allow that just to be reaffirmed if there is one on the floor, being Councillor Westgate. Sorry, Mayor.
That's okay. Councillor Westgate is seconding that. All in favor? That is carried.
Thank you. And then there are some other action item correspondences. The next one is 1-53, which is a request from the Watford Girl Guides. This is a first request for support from them. And their request is for an annual grant of $1,000. Just to be clear, this is the first time we received a request like this from the Watford Girl Guides, and they are not included on your annual donation list. So council's options would be to approve, to refer to budget, or deny, or of course, any any other decision as well.
Thank you, Amanda. So Councillor Westgate.
They always got use of the Centennial Hall for nothing. How much are they paying now? Do we know?
Yes, they're charged the council approved recreation rate, which is $20 per function.
So I believe it works out to be about $1,000 a year. It's about $1,000 a year. That's why the request is $1,000. And like I say, quite often these requests go to the budget process. Any new funding, and it's dealt with there. But again, it's up to council. We can deal with it right here and then too. But I mean, normally what we do, any budget requests, I know there's a couple more coming. We normally refer them to the budget process and deal with them there, but it's up to council and how they want to move forward on this.
Maybe we should refer this to council because the scouts and everyone that we're getting it for nothing before will probably be coming to us.
So I'm going to take that, Councillor Westgate, as a motion to refer the guide support to the January 25th budget meeting. Is that the motion?
Yes.
Do we have a seconder to that motion? Yep, Councillor Manning, all in favor? That's carried. And I have been able to open up my tablet now. We have another one. It's the Lambton County Plowmen's Association request for donation. How does council wish to deal with that? This is the first time for them as well. It's a $500 donation. And again, we can always refer it to the budget process as well, or we can deal with it right now. It's up to council. How does council wish to proceed?
Mayor Case, I'd like to refer it to budget.
Thank you very much. Councillor Morris, do we have a seconder to that? Deputy Mayor Kallenberg, any further discussion? All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. So this takes us to number B, and that's updates to the appointment bylaw. Anybody have any questions on that? Anything that wants to be, you want to reference, Amanda? No? Okay. Do you want a motion on that one specifically right now, or do we want to do it later on?
Yes, please. I would ask for a motion. It can either just be amended that report CL 0223 updates to appointment bylaw be approved. And then the bylaw can be considered during the bylaw section of the meeting.
Very good. Thank you. Who wishes to do the honor? Council.
I'll make that motion.
Councillor Manning, seconded by Councillor Westgate. All in favor? That is carried. Okay. And that takes us to C. And this is, I'm going back to the natural gas situation. And this is a motion that we make to make sure the province knows that we are serious and we really are interested in the funding opportunity that is supposed to come out in January. So there is the motion there for council's consideration. How does council wish to deal with that proposed motion on natural gas?
Make a motion, we send that, approve it.
Moved by Deputy Mayor Kallenberg, seconded by Councillor Morris. Is that your hand? No. It's gone. I've lost him. Seconded by Councillor Westgate. Also a question, Councillor Westgate, or no?
I do have one question. We're saying that we're not going to charge them any taxes on that new infrastructure. Did they ask for that, or how important is that?
I may.
Please.
Thanks, Councillor Westgate. You're correct. In a previous phase, I think 1 or 2 application, the municipality did approve a tax deferral on the same project. At this time, without the parameters of the updated application process available, I am unsure on whether that would be a requirement for phase 3 or a request of phase 3 or not. This resolution was put together under the reality that at this time, we don't know exactly what the application process will look like, and really just to encourage the application process being opened, because of course, natural gas expansion is important to us. But if it does, if phase 3 does allow for support by municipalities to defer tax collection, we would absolutely bring a report back to council for your consideration of that. And given that, especially that we've supported it in the past as well.
Thank you, Amanda. We haven't voted on this. We have a mover and a seconder. I'll call the vote. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. That takes us to D, and that's Community Improvement Plan, CIP Committee, recommendations to council. How does council wish to deal with those recommendations? Any questions or comments on those recommendations? I would look for a motion to approve then.
I'll give you that motion.
Thank you, Councillor Morris. Do I have a seconder? Thank you very much. Joe? All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Okay, I'm just wondering, how much time are we going to need for E, Amanda? Because we got to go back to timed events at 4 o'clock and we're at 3:51. Do you think we have time to do E?
Totally up to you.
Okay. All right, let's go to E, E being the planning open house feedback summary. And I'm probably going to turn that over to Ken to give us the information around that. So Ken, welcome. And I'm going to turn it over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, your worship, members of council. It's good to see you. A little bit closer. Oh, how's that? Thank you. First of all, Happy New Year. I'll keep my presentation short and sweet. I think the report really speaks for itself. We've provided as close to a verbatim regurgitation, for lack of a better term, of the results from SurveyMonkey, with the exception of one comment that really didn't contribute to the discussion that was occurring. But essentially, we received very good attendance for the open house. The attendance stats are noted there on page 2 of the report. I'll note that overall number is 78 times more than the engagement you received for the official plan update, meaning there was no public involvement in the official plan update at all. So you're doing better in these open houses, despite the fact that the official plan update was widely advertised. What we're seeking in our report is direction to begin the next phase, which is to prepare amendments. We are mindful of the fact that this year we're expecting at least 2 new major updates to the Planning Act or planning legislation. So part of our recommendation doesn't include a timeline, because as good of a crystal ball as I thought I used to have, I don't know what legislative changes are coming down from the province. So we want to be mindful that if something comes along that could impact what we're doing, we may have to put that off to a little bit later, but try to get some things moving forward to get to this council for a public meeting and then your consideration. So I'll leave it at that. I think the stats and the responses in the attachment are pretty straightforward, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Well, thank you, Ken. Council, does anybody have any questions for Ken on the process and where we are? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, there was lots of good comments, good and bad, in the report. I guess the question I have, it's more geared to the severance part of it. I think there's some wiggle room from what I see that we can do, but I guess my question is, what can we absolutely not do? Because to me, that starts some parameters, because I've had a few discussions with different people. So, if we absolutely can't do specific things, then it's just nice to know that.
So through your worship, the official plan update gives some flexibility in terms of the overall size of the lot that could be created. And before I go any further, the one thing that you ultimately have a decision to make is, just because you've enabled this to happen doesn't mean you have to make it happen. So remember, anytime the province says you must enable, you have to establish policy in your official plan that would create a means to move forward. Doesn't necessarily mean in certain circumstances you have to. This is one of those you don't have to. That said, the policy context is flexible to a point, but not, but there are going to be certain boundaries that are set in provincial policy that are not going to be flexible. So I think the best way to answer your question is, if council directs us to move forward with those amendments, what we will do as part of the report that will come to you is we'll literally draw out the box for you to say, here are the boundaries that we can do based on what we've heard and also what the province allows in this process. And then here's where you have some flexibility and what we think you should do.
Anybody else have any questions on Ken's report? Any of it at all? Any questions? So basically what we're doing, if we decide to move forward with the motion here today, is just giving Ken the opportunity to firm his work up.
Correct.
And move forward. How does council wish to deal with that request? Deputy Mayor?
I'll move that Ken proceed and firm up the report.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Westgate? Any further discussion from anybody on this particular item? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor? That is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Ken. Okay, council, I'm going to turn back the page here and we're going to go back to our first timed event, which we're 4 minutes off on. So I'm going to give it a few minutes here and we'll start to talk about the consideration meetings of the Gilliland Drain, the Holbrook Fenner Drain, the Kilmer Drain, and the Moffat Drain. So we're just going to give a few minutes. I don't know if there's anybody else that's coming, but it is a 4 o'clock time event. And according to my iPad, it's 3:56. We'll give it a few minutes. Okay. So if everybody needs to take a quick break, you've got 4 minutes. Got to keep her on schedule, Andy. You try anyways. We have Mike joining us.
He's just joined the Zoom.
Perfect. There he is. I haven't seen him.
Hello,
Hi, Mike. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good to see you. We're just going to give it a couple more minutes. 4 o'clock is when we're supposed to start this, so we're going to give it a couple more minutes. Allow anybody who's maybe just coming in to join us, Mike. So give us a couple minutes. Okay, it's 4 o'clock. And we're at number 10, delegation of timed events. And today we're here to deal with the consideration meetings for the Gilliland Drain, the Holbrook Fenner Drain, the Kilmer Drain, and the Moffat Drain, branch 7. So the process goes like this, folks. We're now going to proceed into the consideration of the drainage report for the following drains: the Gilliland Drain, the Holbrook Fenner Drain, Kilmer Drain, Moffat Drain, branch 7. Any petitioner has the right to withdraw from the petition. Does anyone wish to withdraw today that's present? Seeing none. Any other owners in the area requiring drainage have the right to sign the petition. Does anyone wish to sign the petition? And if yes, please let us know now. Nobody present? I'm now going to have Mike DeVos of Spreetson Associates. Will you please explain the reports, Mike? Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I will start with the Gilliland drain. It is a report. Are we to hold off?
Mike, can we up
Yes.
the volume? We're going to try to do it here on our end. Maybe you can do it on your end as well. We'll give it a go. Okay, Mike, we'll try
Is that
again.
okay?
Is that better,
Okay.
guys? Still not great.
Okay,
Maybe just speak up as much as you can, Mike. We'll see if we can make it work that way.
Okay.
I just want to make sure everybody can hear.
all right. Okay, I'll start with the Gilliland drain. It is a report that was prepared in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act, which is repair and improvement to an existing municipal drain. The existing tile is quite old in the portion that has been requested, and that is the portion upstream of Churchill line. Currently, it's a 4-inch to 10-inch diameter tile, and the outlet would be into a newer portion of the Gilliland drain that's downstream of Churchill line. So it was improved earlier, but this area was left for a later date, which is now. The existing drain is too old, too shallow, requires frequent repairs, and the landowners requested that it be replaced with a larger tile, sufficient depth to serve the area. We are proposing to install or construct a 12-inch diameter up to a 21-inch diameter pipe. We do have to go a short distance downstream of Churchill line to connect in with enough depth to that drain. As well, we'll be constructing catch basins at the fence lines to allow surface water to get into the drain, as the new drains are larger in capacity in some respect, to try and improve some of the amount of surface water that these tiles take compared to some of the older drains. So it's not just a subsurface outlet, but both surface and subsurface outlet. There was some discussion with the landowners about the possibility of constructing a new branch along the north side of Churchill line. There is old piping that's there and servicing the area. It's not part of the municipal drain, but the landowners decided not to proceed and to continue to utilize the existing private drain that's along the road. So we are just looking at replacing the portion of the municipal drain that's existing. And that's stop and open up to questions.
Thank you, Mike. Did anybody have any questions on the Gilliland drain that's present today? Yes. Mike, the question was asked, is that the one that goes to John King's?
Yes.
Very good. Any other questions? Andrew, did you have any comments on this particular drain?
I do not.
Very good, thank you. So I guess we'll move on to the next one, Mike, if you'd be so kind, the Holbrook Fenner drain.
Okay, the Holbrook Fenner drain, as well, similar to the last one, was prepared in accordance with section 78 of the Drainage Act. Currently, there is a main drain and branch, both being tiles, as well as a portion of open channel downstream. And the landowners had similar request in that the old drain was too small in places, not in good repair, and somewhat too shallow in other places. It does go through a significant stretch of bush lot. The open channel needed some repair work to be done to it. The old tiles were of 1967 vintage and 1982 vintage. So the main drain was 1967, and there was a south branch that was a little bit newer, but there was also what we're referring to as branch number 1, which heads west. That was part of the 1967 drain. An additional issue that was in our way, I'll put it, is that there is Enbridge pipelines that cross the drain. and are in a location vertically that causes us to have to go over top of them. It was very, very difficult to try to go below them. But in this case, we did have enough cover right where the junction of the branch number 1 came across, so we were able to make some adjustments and get across. But there was additional cost to Enbridge to be able to accommodate that, and that's covered under Section 26 of the Drainage Act. So there is an additional cost and work to get across their pipelines, but it's incorporated as part of this report. We will be constructing catch basins along the route of the drain to try and put surface water in. The landowners affected will most likely be constructing some additional what's referred to as WASCOBs. That is an acronym for a water and soil control basin, or berm, which the purpose is more than just a berm to try and push water in the drain. Those berms are larger and they're there to actually hold water back from flowing over the ground downstream to try and help prevent surface flows and erosion downstream. So as part of that, the landowners asked us to increase the design standard from what the Ministry of Ag and Food recommends as the standard, from which is 1.5 inches over 24 hours, up to a 2-inch drainage coefficient over the 24-hour period, which typically is about 1 size in pipe size. So we're recommending that the main drain be replaced and upgraded to a 525 to 750 millimeter, which is 21 to 30 inch diameter pipe. The south branch would be 14 and 18 inch tile, and the west branch would be smaller than that, the 10 and 14 inch tile. So again, there'll be catch basins at fence lines and at some roads. There was also other utilities at the roads which needed to be exposed and investigated. But again, that's part of the process, and those particular utilities pay the increased cost to accommodate their existence. And I would stop and open up to questions at this point.
Anyways, I do apologize for the quality of sound, folks. I'm hoping everybody is hearing this. I know it's very mumbled. Did anybody have any questions on the Holbrook Fenner drain? Seeing none. Andrew, did you have any comments?
I don't have any comments.
Thank you. Then we're going to move on to the Kilmer drain. Mike, you'd be so kind, take us through that one.
Sorry about that. Like the other reports, this report was prepared in accordance with Section 78 of the Drainage Act, which again is repair and improvement to an existing municipal drain. The Kilmer drain was constructed at various times throughout history. It's been originally constructed in 1919, but then upgraded and partially replaced in 1962 and 1975. But the landowners felt that due to drainage needs and conditions, that the existing drain was not sufficient, and the frequency of repairs was climbing to the point where it should be replaced. And so we are looking at replacing this existing municipal drain for its entire length from the open channel, which is at the line between lots 8 and 9, going up across lot 8 and 7, and up and across the road at the top, just ends up upstream. So the existing drains will be partially destroyed and partially left in place and abandoned. The older drains would be destroyed and the newer drain would be abandoned. The pipe sizes themselves vary quite significantly in that when we get near the bottom end, we do have to cross the Enbridge pipelines again. So in this situation, they are very shallow and we do have to go underneath them. That does make the situation much more difficult and expensive. And there is a significant cost to Enbridge to do that. It has been submitted to them and reviewed by them, and they're aware of it. but there'll have to be a boring underneath the pipelines so as to not disturb those pipelines as we try to get past them, and then jump up vertically once we get past them. As well, we will be installing catch basins at the fence lines. And similar to the Holbrook Fenner, the landowners requested that we upsize the pipe to accommodate a 2-inch design rather than an 1.5 inch design. So I would stop and open up to questions.
Does anybody present have any questions for Mike on the Kilmer drain? Andrew? Andrew?
The question, where is this drain? This drain is just off Egerment Road and Ellerton Road. No.
Yeah, I'll ask the question. Does anybody have any? Yes, sir, please. So Andrew or Mike, who would like to take that? It's a good question. Who would like to take that question? Andrew?
I-
Mike, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I could not hear the question, so maybe Andrew could try.
Andrew, do you want to give Mike the question, please? The timeline?
So, Mike, the question was, why does the drain take 4 years to complete?
Yeah, this drain was a bit of an exception to the norm. It in real terms, it should not take 4 years. I agree with that. We did have pipelines. We did have COVID. We also had to expose the tile. So for those reasons, it was longer than normal, but I do agree that it should have been shorter. And in striving forward, I will do my best to ensure that it does not take that long. So it was a fairly complicated process, but it should have been shorter.
So the question from the floor, Mike, was by having it taking so much longer, did the cost come in a lot more than if we would have dealt with it in a timely fashion? Am I correct, gentlemen? Is that the question? Mike?
There has been inflation, yes, to some degree. So prices have gone up over time. Exactly what degree would be, I don't know. The contractors were extremely busy in the past, and they have somewhat caught up. So it's hard to know for sure what exactly that would be, but to some degree, yes, that would be.
So, Mike, the question basically is that the gentlemen have said this was really ready to go approximately 4 years ago. And a lot of the work was done. And again, the overrun on costs plus the delay, and they asked for an oversized drain to start with. And I guess they're just trying to make the point that why did it take so long again? And again, I think, gentlemen, am I catching everything that you've asked for the most part? So again, it comes down to the timeliness of the job.
Yes, I mean, I've responded to that already. There was, and I didn't mention it, but there was delays that we were waiting for information back from the landowners. And that took substantial amount of time too. So whether it was a communication issue where they didn't know they were supposed to be getting back to us, but some of it is us for sure. Some of it is the complexity of the job getting across the pipelines. They're not an easy thing to do. We were not ready to go. We were ready to go in general terms for some things, but we were asked to do more investigations and come back with additional costs. We were asked to look at alternatives and things like that. So it's not quite as straightforward as being ready to go. To some degree, yes, I agree with that, but to some degree, I would disagree with that. So it's not as easy as what it's being said, but at the same time, should it have been quicker? Yes.
So it's just been restated again, Mike, that the one gentleman here stated that it was on his property and they were ready to go 4 years ago. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to resolve this today, but I mean, very, very good points from the folks that are here today attending. And I guess we just got to make sure that we don't ever let this happen again. It's not much of a consolation to everybody here today with the cost being more. But at the same time, I think the point's been made. Is there anything else you folks would like to mention about this particular drain? What's the timeline going forward? Good question. So Mike, the question is the timeline moving forward on this drain. Could you educate us on that, please?
Yes. Depending on the municipality, some municipalities may tender between this meeting and the next meeting, and some may wait until after the final reading of the third bylaw is given. But once we get to that stage, tenders are sent out to contractors. Contractors submit the prices with the dates on it. I would envision this to be constructed next summer or late summer, dealing with what the contractors are like right now with their timelines. Some contractors are not as busy as others. It's really changed. So some, depending upon which contractors are the low bidder in this case, it could be much, much sooner. Some of them have gotten caught up quite a bit over this summer. So it's difficult to say. It'll depend on the contractor, but that's best.
So the comment is, again, with the situation that's out there and with maybe the lack of contractors, the price could go up again. But I guess what I'm asking for is making sure that we communicate to these folks. I mean, we can't let this keep going on and on and on. So we need to communicate. And Andrew, you had a question or a comment?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Case. I just want to clarify to the audience, you said next summer. I think what you mean is this coming summer, correct? Not 2024.
2023.
That's correct, 2023. The intent would it be built? He didn't say that. He said no, and that's why I wanted the clarification for the audience, but he said next summer, but his intent was this coming summer. I will say there's no guarantee, but Mike would know best as far as tendering with contractor availability. I would say he's fairly confident it'll likely be scheduled for this summer, give or take. And we can certainly keep you informed once that's tendered and the contractors are required to put on a start date. So Mike, so the latest question was, is there a way to put a rush on it?
We could put dates on it. We tend not to, for the sake that if there are some contractors out there that can't meet that timeline, you might get less bids. But it's certainly possible, but it's usually not recommended.
Okay, so communications is key. We've lost 4 years on this one. So we need to make sure that we communicate with people. I know council's not going to likely be holding this up at all. We'll get our piece done and we'll turn it over to these gentlemen, but communication is key. And I will tell you that we will be communicating on a very regular basis and we will try our best to get this done this summer as stated. And we'll go from there. Any other questions from any? Yes, please.
I'd just like to
No, that's a very good point. I know that there's less people out there bidding on this work, but 4 years is absolutely unacceptable. So we'll make sure that we communicate with everybody and we'll try to get this done this summer. And of course, by doing it this summer means communicating with everybody else out there with your crops on the ground and everything to make it as user friendly as possible. So is there any other questions on this particular drain? Kilmer Drain? Yes, Brad. So what's been said, Mike, is the Gilliland Drain is also approaching 4 years as well. So I know that obviously from what we're hearing today, I've been here for the last 4 years, but it sounds like things are behind. And we need to try our best to get things done. I know there's only so many contractors out there, but it looks like we've got a lot of work ahead of us. So just a point, Mike.
Okay. Yeah, if I could maybe respond to that.
Sure.
Yeah, the Gilliland drain is not as old as the Kilmer and the Holbrook Fenner. The Gilliland drain is significantly newer than that.
Okay, well, we're not going to get into splicing hairs today. We know we got some work ahead of us. Again, I'll ask the question, does anybody else have anything on the Kilmer Drain for today? Saying nothing, we'll move on to the Moffat Drain, Branch 7. Mike, please.
Second here, okay. This report was prepared in accordance with Section 4 of the Drainage Act for a new petition or the construction of a new municipal drain. The petition was submitted to extend the drain, the current Branch 7, to extend it upstream from Underpass Road going upstream across Lot 16. Currently, there are existing surface flows that flow across the field and cause flooding. The property does not have sufficient drainage, either in the form of a ditch or a properly sized tile to accommodate some of the water. The issue is somewhat complicated by the fact that there are some additional flows from upstream that would not naturally occur, and they come from the Warwick lagoons which discharge upstream into the woodlot. There have been improvements made in the past to the lagoon system, which have mostly eliminated this issue, with exception for the duration of flow. So the quantity of flow is not higher than it would be now, but the duration of that discharge is longer and still does put an obligation and an issue there that needs to be identified and addressed as part of the report. So there are some additional capacity and costing that needed to be implemented to accommodate the additional flows from the lagoon property. The proposal through the request of the owner was to construct a new ditch or open channel along the north and east limit of the property, from the road parallel to the railway and then parallel to the east limit of the property, down to the point of where the surface water flows out of the bush lot into the affected property. The proposal also includes riprap protection, grass buffer, and sediment control so that effects downstream or erosion will not occur on bends and in certain places. But it does still rely on vegetation to grow. So there still will be a time that will be required to allow some new vegetation to grow on the ditch banks. So it is the construction of a new channel. And I would stop and open up to questions.
Thanks, Mike. Does anybody have any questions on the Moffat Drain, Branch 7? Andy?
Yeah, well, how can that cost like $6,000 for grass seed then?
So the question, Mike, was why the high cost of grass seed on this project?
Our prices are based on prices that contractors charge, but he may not be understanding or acknowledging that there is grass buffers that have to be seeded as well as the ditch banks, but those costs are what the contractors typically submit. It is hand seeding. It's not sprayed mulch. So if we were to do mulch, it would be more costly, but hand seeding this is what, if it comes in less, that would be great. I would love it to come in less. I don't disagree that it seems high, but that's the price that we typically see.
So the question is, would the ratepayer be able to do it himself to save some money? Did you hear my comment, Mike?
I did. There has been some discussion on this project of what the landowner may or may not be able to do on their own. And I think Andrew had been involved with that. And I don't know if Andrew could answer that question, or I can try if Andrew would prefer not to, but.
Andrew, please.
So yeah, we have had some discussions back and forth with the landowner about certain things they could do. And I believe we came to an agreement that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, but I think it was limited to hauling of some of the spoil. And then we kind of had to draw a line what we could allow for a landowner to do, because there are other landowners that are involved in paying in this project. So to allow a landowner to do work and then pay them for it, it becomes a little bit gray, for lack of better words. So at some point you have to draw a line and say, okay, the landowner could do this much to, save a few bucks. But I mean, if for this particular item, grass seed, I don't recall this coming up in conversation. So it's something I guess we could talk about. Any thoughts on that, Mike?
Yeah, I agree that I don't recall it being discussed. It is something that if the landowner wishes to try to do, we can, but I would caution that the responsibility then is for the landowner to ensure that that grass will grow properly. So if you tender it out, it's the contractor's responsibility, and if the owner does it, it would be the owner's responsibility to have it, to ensure that it will get done for that particular cost.
Okay, so maybe what we can do is some discussion can still be had, Andrew, with the ratepayers to see what we can do to try to get that cost down. Maybe it'll come down anyways compared to the number that's in here, but you'll have those discussions and see if we can't make something work in those discussions. Anybody else have any other questions on the Moffat drain? Seeing none. Andrew, any other comments on the Moffat drain?
No further comments. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So if the reports are approved, the bylaw will be given first and second reading later in the meeting. I don't see anywhere where there's any further investigation other than some of the small things such as the grass seed we just talked about. And I'd like to thank everybody for coming out and attending. So do we need the name of everybody here, or do we have everybody's name that's here tonight? Madam Clerk. Okay. Is there anything else, guys? I'm not going to push you out the door by any means. Does anybody else have any questions or comments about today? There's a process I got to follow, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. If you have another question, we're more than happy to listen. Anybody? Very good. Yeah, Prad.
Any idea? Because it's been at least 2.5 years, and us doing that, coming at that time, we were somewhat told that it probably could be done, so we have planned for crop rotation in order to plow that farm, and if it ain't done, then I'm screwed.
Yeah, go ahead, Mike.
And so, but just Andrew, you want to know now.
So the question was related to the Gilliland drain and when we expect that the work could be completed, and that would be in the same boat as The others, we anticipate that this summer that it could be completed.
Okay, so communication's everything. Obviously, we've lost way too much time over the last little while. So we'll be communicating to everybody. Now, normally, it used to be back in the old days when I did these meetings, we had a sign-up sheet for everybody who was here to make sure we didn't miss anybody. Do we have everybody's contact information that's here today, Madam Clerk? Very good. Well, thank you very much for attending, and we'll be in touch. You're welcome to stay and for the rest of the meeting, but I'm sure you guys have other places you want to go. So thank you very much for coming. Okay, Mike, you're off the hook. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Look
Good
forward to
evening.
hearing back from you. Thanks.
Okay, bye.
Okay, council, the next piece of business is a zoning amendment, and it's my duties to announce the following. The next item of council's agenda is the holding of the public meeting with respect to the application to amend the zoning bylaw and its council's consideration of bylaw to amend Warwick zoning bylaw 121 of 2012 on lands described as Plan 2 NPT lots 14 and 15 SER known municipally as the Egremont Road in the township of Warwick. The purpose of the bylaw the purpose of the bylaw amendment is to rezone the entirety of the lands from the industrial 1 zone to residential 4-1 zone. The purpose of the rezoning is to facilitate the conversion of an existing institutional use, a church, to a single detached dwelling. I'm going to ask the clerk the following: the method of public notice that was given and the date that the notice was given. Amanda.
Thanks, Marquise. Notice was provided by regular mail and posted on the property. It was mailed on December 15th, 2022, and posted on the property on December 16th, 2022.
Thank you very much. And it's also my duty to state the following: any person requiring further notice of the passing of the bylaws should give their name and full mailing address to the clerk before leaving the meeting. Any persons present who wish to make oral or written submissions should provide the clerk with their name and full mailing address. Also, all persons wishing to address the bylaws should ask their questions through the chair. And we'll now proceed. The clerk will now read any written submissions.
Thank you. I will know there was one written submission from the building official, and I will not read it, despite the procedure, but it is enclosed with the agenda and just includes some comments related to the Ontario Building Code for consideration.
Thank you. Now our planner will now give their report. Floor is yours, sir.
Good afternoon, Mayor Case, Council. I'll keep the report short and sweet. Essentially, we're here regarding the readaptation or the adaptation of a institutional use, the former church, Warwick United Church, into a residential use. It's taken a little while to get here, in large part due to the flood mitigation concerns related to the property. The property is currently zoned institutional. We're proposing a site-specific amendment in order to reflect the existing structure on the property, with some limitations in relation to decks and any sort of protrusions into the front yard, given the fact that it's quite tight. So very straightforward. We've kept the environmental protection hazard zone intact as we see it as an overlay, and recognize that the structure as is a legal non-conforming use regarding that zone, or what we're seeing as an overlay. That's pretty much it. We haven't received any comments from the public, no concerns from the neighbors. And as I said previously, the major concern was in relation to the St. Clair Regional Conservation Authority, as the property is in its entirety within the regulated area. And as such, permits are required from them, approvals are required from the Conservation Authority. And a strategy has now been determined moving forward in order to ensure that the living quarters that will be developed on the property will be protected in the event of a flood, which has been designed to the Hurricane Hazel. So that's pretty much it. Any questions, comments?
Okay, we do have some folks that have joined us on Zoom from the looks of things here. I've just caught that in my eye there. We will hear from those that are in favor of the bylaw first. Is there anybody who wants to speak in favor of the bylaw?
My wife and I are in favor. We're the ones that sent the applicant.
Very good, sir. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Anybody else who wants to speak in favor? Anybody who's not in favor would like to speak?
Sure. Well, just say that we would very much like to see this all approved and have Barry and Kristen get their place finished and be able to move in there as soon as possible. They've done a lot of work and they'd be wonderful neighbors.
Thank you very much for those comments. I appreciate it. Members of council, does anybody have any questions about the application? Seeing none. Okay, it's also my duty to state the following. The public meeting is now concluded. Council has 15 days from this meeting to decide whether or not to pass the bylaw. Council's decision will be mailed to those who have requested a copy. Any person or agency may appeal to the Ontario Land Tribunal in respect to the bylaw by filing with the clerk of the Township of Warwick no later than 20 days after the day of written notice was given. A notice of appeal must set out the objection to the bylaw and the reasons in support of the objection, plus the applicable fee to the Ontario Land Tribunal. So just for everybody that's here and for the folks joining us on Zoom, is everybody clear on what happens in the next steps, folks?
Not entirely.
So we want to make sure that you are clear and you understand it. Amanda, perhaps you could state what happens next. And again, I've given the timelines, but that doesn't necessarily mean it takes that much time. Thank you. Amanda?
Sure. Thank you, Mayor Case. So just to clarify for our applicants, the McHenrys, upon approval of a bylaw, which will be considered at the end of this council meeting, our planning team and our administrative team have 15 days to issue notice of a notice of decision. So I just want to make sure I got that right. And then notice of decision will be circulated directly to you and I think some other parties as well, but certainly you'll receive a copy. We have 15 days to do that. Of course, we will endeavor to do that sooner than 15 days. So you should get that soon. And then following that, once that notice of decision is approved on that date, so let's say it's hypothetically tomorrow, there's a 20-day appeal period from that date the notice is issued, and that appeal period would allow yourselves or others to potentially appeal the application. Assuming there's no appeals submitted during that 20-day period, what will happen is your application will you'll receive a notice that says there were no appeals, and then you'll be officially approved. And at that time, the building department could issue any permits or anything like that following the appeal period. In the meantime, though, you do have the option to, I know you have been working with our folks for some time. You do continue to have the option to pursue, those building permit application processes or any other processes you need to get everything lined up, so that when that 20-day appeal period hopefully arrives without any appeals submitted, you'll be ready to go. So there's no need to wait to kind of complete those processes in the interim.
Thank you, Amanda. Any other questions, folks, on this process? Very good. Everybody's good? All right. Well, thank you very much for joining us, ladies and gentlemen, and we'll move on and we will be notifying you at the appropriate time so you don't lose any time during the situation. So thank you very much. Have a good night.
Bye.
Hey, Council, we're going to go back to number 14, new business. Did anybody have any new business or notice of motion for today? Seeing none. Okay, Council, we're going to go in camera. So we're going to go in camera to discuss A, B, C, and D and E under the Municipal Act in Camera section. So for everybody else tonight, we will be going off the air and we will not be coming back at the end of the meeting. It will be a very short wrap up at that time. So we'll be leaving everybody on YouTube and we will see everybody at our very next meeting. Thank you very much for joining us. Could I have a motion to go in camera, council, please? Deputy Mayor and seconded by Councillor Manning. All in favor?